Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from near and far, and welcome back for this week's second DICE Data Center Deep Dive session. For today's discussion, we'll delve back into the construction, design, and development spectrum, exploring the current state of the market, where the sector is growing, and what's driving that demand. I'd like to give a big shout out and thank you to all of our attendees at home, today's speakers, and our presenting sponsors. Today's presenting sponsors are Clayco and Tindall Corporation. Please also note the following housekeeping details for today's webinar. First, to all of our attendees, if you are not presenting today, you are both on mute and without video, so no need to be dressed up for the occasion. There will be plenty of time for questions following the session. Click the box that says Q&A. We will try to get to as many of your questions as possible, but please note that only questions asked in the Q&A section will be answered because we'll likely miss them if they're asked in the chat section. Please also be active in the chat section, say hello to your colleagues at home, and let them know who you are and where you're from. Additionally, throughout the webinar, we'll be sending out polls, giving you the chance to share your opinions and help drive the conversation forward. And finally, don't worry about taking notes. This webinar will be recorded and sent to you after we conclude, so relax and enjoy the conversation. Now, today's session will feature a wealth of industry knowledge. Our speakers include Lane Anderson, Executive VP of Development and Strategic Procurement at QTS, Anthony Caracino, Senior VP of Global Construction from Digital Realty Trust, Kevin Dalton, Senior VP of Construction and CFED at NTT Global Data Centers Americas, Ryan McGuire, Executive VP and Shareholder at Clayco, and will be moderated by Tim Gainey, Manager of Commercial Applications from Tindall Corporation. Now let's get started. Take it away, Tim.
All right, thanks, Adam. Appreciate that introduction. Hopefully I'm not on mute. I think I spent half my time saying, hey, you're on mute. So I want to thank everyone as well for joining this construction and design webinar. As Adam rightfully said, we have some serious horsepower in design and construction, so I'm very much looking forward to this, this panel. I want to elaborate a little bit on the introduction about who Tindall is and what I do for Tindall, and we'll ask our other participants to do the same. So I've been with Tindall for 23 years, 21 of those years in operations. So I guess I'm a little bit odd is I actually know what we do at Tindall. Tindall has been around since 1963, roughly 57 years in the industry. We have 6 divisions located strategically across the Southeast, the Atlantic. We cover from Texas all the way up to Pennsylvania, New Jersey. So with that said, we'll jump over to Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. So Kevin Dalton, I head up global design and construction for NTT globally. Thank you.
Anthony?
Anthony Caracino, Senior Vice President of Global Design and Construction for Digital Realty.
Ryan?
Hey guys, Ryan McGuire with Clayco. I'm an EVP and shareholder with the company. Clayco's a $3.2 billion a year design build construction company. We've got about 2,400 employees across the US, headquartered in Chicago, but also offices across the US as well. We're a top 10 data center builder, top 4 commercial office, top 2 industrial, and our mission critical group focuses on hyperscale, co-location, and enterprise clients.
Lane, you want to finish this up there?
Sure. Lane Anderson, QTS, Executive Vice President, also over global design and construction for our company. So excited to be on the panel.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. All right, well, let's jump right in. First question will go to Ryan, and with the experience that we have on this panel, it's going to be kind of free-flowing. So just to start it off, Ryan will start, and then we'll all jump in, and no telling where it might go. But the first question is, you know, this sector, the data center industry, has grown considerably since the digital surge began, and there are lots of questions about what's changed in the data center industry, what hasn't changed. And Ryan, if you could expand on that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks, Tim. So I think I'd want to start really with what we're seeing that's changing within the industry. And obviously the rest of the panelists here can comment about that or what isn't changing necessarily. But I think just in a really short amount of time, you know, when I look back at the first hyperscale projects that Clayco started building several years ago, we had staffs of 40 to 50 people on site to manage the project, and workforces exceeding 1,000 people for the tradecraft. Also, the client side, they have almost as many or more people on site managing the project for them as well. I think one of the coins that were termed was the man-to-man defense effect with the GC and the parity with the client. I think there have been a lot of things that have occurred over the past couple of years that have helped both us and the client streamline and really build these projects much more efficiently. Certainly from a GC perspective, with smaller staffs, taking out 40 to 50 person staff and reducing it substantially, and really working with our partners to look at how do we lean the process on the unique owner Division 1 requirements, as an example. What's critical to the success of the project, what's not. Looking at design and repeatability of design, so that we don't have so many unique design things that need to be coordinated. That certainly has helped draw down the GC staff side, but I think a bigger significant impact has been on the tradecraft. When you have 1,000 people or more that you need to build these projects at peak, and especially given that some of these projects are remote in areas that it's not easy to get all that tradecraft without spending a lot of money on incentives and other things to those particular project sites. We really need to look at the design and prefabrication, offsite manufacturing opportunities that can really start to reduce that requirement for the tradecraft on the site. So those are some of the things that we've been seeing. There's certainly a big push in the industry with the clients that we're currently working for that exact same thing. And I would love to hear the rest of the panelists' thoughts on that too.
Anthony,
Yeah.
you want next?
Yeah, go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, so big proponent on modularity, right? From the building footprint to the equipment on site to the entire delivery approach, right? I'm a firm believer on manufacturing the electric rooms off site, where we can do a little pre-functional testing. Takes that out of the commissioning piece. Also, keeping it in a certain block size that can accommodate most customers, and then also accommodate a little bit of customization for those customers. So we're seeing more of a trend of that they can live with some of the block sizes that we have that we're delivering, but they need a tweak for customization, and we can allow that. We can make that happen, right? We do that both on the electrical side and the mechanical side. So big proponent of modularity. Speed to market plays a key. These projects we're under pressure more and more to build faster and faster for our customers. So I think the modular approach is a key fit to that, right? It's enabled us to build very quickly in pretty much all the markets across the globe.
Thanks, Anthony. Lane, do you want to add something there?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we're probably all going to speak from a similar vantage point, but I think that what I would underscore in the same way, speed, right? The timelines, frankly, our customers are giving us less and less time. Frankly, we a lot of us compete for the same deals, and their decision points seem to come later and later in the deal cycle, and the end dates are not changing. So we really rely on great partners from the equipment, from the modularity, from our builders to be able to, react with us. So I would say we probably have taken 20, 30% off of a typical build cycle in the last 4 years, and probably 50% in the last 20 years from what I've been building data centers. So it's normal now. It's not even Herculean that we all have to do that. I think the difficult thing, if I were just speaking out, and we all have our own, secret Rubik's Cube of it, but the dynamics of our design and how we scale and how we remain flexible is just so important to still retain customer flexibility so we can adapt. It's shocking how different some of the end users want their topology to be different than, one hyperscaler to the next, or one large colo user to the next. So speed, flexibility, modularity would be my 3 points.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you take a step back, what's the market look like 20 years ago when we all started? And, back then, you know, it was okay to build a data center in 2 years. But you know, the market's evolved and customer expectations have changed. And what it's done is it's driven us to, like Lane and Anthony said, you know, bring product to the market quicker. And to the point where, you know, the data center business has become commoditized. So as a result, you know, we're trying to figure out how to do this better, faster, cheaper, quicker, to meet, you know, customer needs. So it's been interesting if you, like I said, take a look of the way it was 20 years ago versus it is today. It's a completely different market. And, you know, it's up to us to evolve the business to meet those customer needs.
Very good. Thanks, guys. I think there's a lot there we could expand upon. Is there anything in particular you guys would like to expand upon without giving away industry secrets? I know Lane was saying speed, flexibility, and modularity. I also heard Anthony talking about, I think it was Anthony anyway, talking about prefab and offsite. Are there any particular areas? I'm on the building system side, so we do precast. Not sure if all you guys use precast or not, but not just in the building side, but also on the mechanical, the electrical, or things that you do that you hear.
Yeah. And I think it also starts with a good stable of, I don't want to say vendors. Vendors is the wrong word. I look at it as partnership, right? Partnership with AEs that are comfortable with what we do, that we've used in the past, that have grown with us. Same thing with our GC partners. You treat them as partners and not as a commodity, not as a vendor, right? They're in there in with you to deliver for a lot of our customers. So they have a lot of skin in the game, right? They want to do well with you. They want to grow with you, and they want to be a long-term partner. So many times, and it's been such a change in the industry from when I first started, of the traditional AE, GC bid, and it's adversarial. You can't have that in the speed that we have to deliver right now. We need good, strong partners, and that goes for the equipment side, the design side, and the construction side. So that's what I think makes us successful at what we do, all of us, right? We have those strategic partners.
Yeah, if you take a look at the entire supply chain, we either all succeed together or we fail together. So that cooperation and coordination is absolutely critical to the success of all of our businesses.
And Kevin, I think that was put to the test during this COVID year, right? Specifically with our equipment vendors that we rely on. You know, we never missed a date with our equipment shipments at supply line. But in the same token,
it sure got tested though.
It got tested really hard, and you know, our GC partners were and our AE firms were a great part of that. And so many times you look at when a country shuts down, right? Like we did.
Right.
Biggest concern was more on the design side than on the actual construction side, because those construction workers were still going to get to site. But
Right.
how does the design actually get done that I needed to get done when you have everybody working from home?
Right.
That was my biggest fear, and it worked out fantastic. Our partners did better than I thought with that.
Yeah.
But that was my biggest fear of it, to be honest with you, being able to deliver coordinated sets of documents to the field and still execute strongly.
Yeah, I think the thing I would chime in on that about the partnerships, and I think we've all talked about it, is the time to invest in your partnership is prior to these tough cycles, right? Or your acceleration. So I think I would reach out, as we all have, and it takes both sides to invest that time and get alignment, right? It's really hard to say you can run at the same speed. This maybe your end user or yourself is, if you haven't spent that time and you haven't been through a couple battles together.
Yeah.
And that's when you find those misalignments, when somebody uses the dreaded word, well, I assumed, right? And we all go, wow, that's not what I assumed.
And I think you nailed it, Lane, when you said battles together, because it's a fight together. It's not a fight against each other.
Yeah.
Fight to the finish together to deliver for our customers. So
yeah, I agree. It
tested well this year.
Yeah, interesting time period. And again, I think it's interesting. We all talk about, I think what's great about our industry is, even though we're competitors and we find, ways to, vigorously, pursue each other's clients, that's fine. what I found was really interesting, especially through the pandemic, was how open people were to talking about ways to prevent, say COVID transmission, and general contractors and electricians really sharing things, because at the end of the day, we frankly all care about the results, and we want people to be able to work and keep the economy going, and share that. I think was really refreshing, just basically on humankind about what we're doing. So
yeah, Lane, I agree completely. I think when we look back to late February, early March, there was so much uncertainty about what was going on. Is construction going to be able to proceed? Are we going to be able to do it in a way that's safe for the workforce and responsive to our clients? And man, one of the things I'm most proud of our industry is the fact how everybody came together. We benefited so much from our peers that, prior to that, we considered them competitors.
Right.
They benefited from us. We all shared openly. We actually had a pretty heavy hand in creating some of the policies on, that we reviewed with local jurisdictions, local government, to really try to prove that we could do construction safely during that time.
Right.
And just seeing everybody share open source, no pride of authorship. We posted stuff on our website that anybody could go, debrand it, put their own brand on it. But that was invaluable. And we were joking, the panelist group, for the audience, we were joking about the debate last night and how it's the complete opposite of that. But you really saw through the pandemic, and which continues through the pandemic, how the industry came together to really, not that everything's solved yet, but man, as a whole, we did, I think, a really good job pushing through that.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, it was a bumpy ride this year, right, with the pandemic. So, and we had to experiment with things we'd never done before either, right? One of the things we did was, virtual commissioning. You couldn't get everybody to the site, the commissioning agent to the site, so we had to think of it a little differently. And virtual commissioning did work for us.
Right.
It's not a substitute,
Right.
for actually being there, which I prefer. But we were able to do that and still deliver for the customer. So
yeah,
sometimes you have to think out of the box, and it's something that we probably wouldn't have thought of prior COVID. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Anthony, because I think everybody has some versions of that, but just, taking some steps back, and it makes you think about things. And again, just sharing information. You take a commissioning team, and let's say they had an exposure in one place, but yet they go to another data center. So all of a sudden we've got two peers talking to each other, really just trying to say, let's keep each other safe. How do we share this information? And we all found out how important data centers are to, keeping us alive. There would be no economy without a data center. So again, there's some great lessons learned. It's a great forum in the future.
Yeah, we ask ourselves, how do we get there? And the answer to that is having the programs and processes in place prior, with knowing what the end result needs to be, and understanding that when you do run into situations like we did back in March, okay, we need to adapt to this. So how do we, like Anthony said, how do we look outside the box, knowing what the end result needs to be, and make that happen? So those processes are really the key in the programs, and those are the things that we've developed as an industry over the last 20-25 years.
Yep. I think another thing, Kevin, that it taught me outside the U.S. or dealing with either Europe or APAC, the importance of sourcing your equipment locally as much as possible. Yep. Getting cross borders from Germany into another country with either switchgear when borders are closed has a definite impact on, or could have an impact on being able to deliver, right? So definitely when I look at projects globally now, I try to source as much possible in country if I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. And I think that's something, at least speaking for my own self, we were probably hesitant to do that. It was much easier to centralize and control costs and control quality, and then all of a sudden that really backfired, right? So again, guilty. How do you deal with that? So there's going to be some long-term ramifications of this. So
Hey, quick question. You guys were saying source locally. Are you meaning like Anthony was talking about, going
Country-wise.
to the country or just
Yeah.
within the country?
Country-wise, what I would think, not it's. I mean, for
Yeah,
us,
so
yeah.
yeah, that's what I was saying. It would be a source in country, right? Look, when you're looking at a particular project, say a project in I'll just throw India out there for instance. We have a lot of vendor partners that work with us globally. Do they manufacture in India? If they do, I would leverage that knowledge that we have here with them and buy in India. Right? Same thing would be for Japan or for another part of the kind of Germany or something like that. They're manufacturing there. In fact, minutes down the road, why would I bring in switchgear manufactured, say, in Ireland into Germany, right? Yeah,
Right.
maybe a cheaper cost, but in the big picture, if I can't get it across the border, it doesn't do me any good, right?
Yeah, and for us, the biggest concern early on is not just the vendor partners, but their tier 1, tier 2 suppliers would be even more impacted by that, because if you take a look at the global economy, everything is coming from different places around the globe, and just making sure that our vendors' supply chains were intact to help us was a big concern early on, and thankfully wasn't as much of an impact as it could have been, and that I had some nightmares thinking about that early on.
Yeah, I got to say, Kevin, I was very proud of all our vendor, well, our partners, our equipment suppliers, right? They really, really stepped up their game and helped us to deliver. I can't say enough about all our partners. They did a great job for us.
Right.
Agreed.
You guys get, I'm sorry, Lane, go ahead.
No, I would say the exact same thing. So I will say the only thing that's interesting, and I'm sure we're all feeling it, is we're all playing in a certain space, and there's also some large buyers that we all know that are really absorbing a lot of product right now with AWS's and Microsoft. It's interesting how we have to essentially be aware of that supply stream and frankly navigate around it. We all know it's not going away. It's increasing, if anything. So that's another dynamic of playing with their incessant buying, and it is what it is.
So one of the other things that we're seeing, with this prefabrication and the standardization of design too, is a lot of clients are warehousing their long lead equipment so that it is available through the site or to the site when it's needed, and you can kind of move along if the schedule accelerates. You're able to get it to the job site more quickly. There's a pandemic, you've got it stored in a warehouse that you can deploy it out to your different projects. As part of that, looking at how do you design for worst case so that if things happen, you can fit each piece of equipment in the space that's allocated for it without a significant type of redesign.
So Ryan knew my question. He answered it. I was going to ask about inventory. Everybody was just in time inventory, right? Might have got you in a little trouble if you didn't have some inventory there. So that's good. So do you guys actually get that involved in the tier 1, tier 2 subs, I guess, or they're for the suppliers, for the vendors?
I mean, you need to ask the question.
Yeah.
And like I said early on, it definitely forced us to have those conversations with our primary vendors, and to understand early on, it's like how much of your product is coming from China? What is the delay in product coming out of China? So definitely those were questions that were asked early on, for sure.
Yeah, I would say for us, I would say for sure, right? You almost have to. There's so much of our success is tied to our tier 1 suppliers, safety, response, and frankly, just alignment, right? When there's a problem, if you're not on a first name basis with, the senior management of these tier 1, you're just one step removed from the real answer at times. And it's not that we don't trust people, but it's like George Bush, trust but verify. It's something you've got to get involved in to be, I'd say at the speed at which we're going, it would be highly advisable.
And to work through it as a team. Now with the
Yeah.
with EC, the sub-tiers and the owner, those decisions and those solutions take place so much more rapidly when everybody's looking at it together. We bring our own views, we bring our own perspectives, but we also have different resources that we can allocate to the problem at hand to be able to move forward collectively.
Yeah. And I would say a lot of that goes to why you would want to be a great vendor partner for us, even as a tier one supplier. I mean, we all know that's, of a construction site, that's 95% of the people. If you do a great job in one market, let's say you're an awesome precast or steel or electrician, you should be on the top list of, let's say, of a different market that maybe you're not as well known to that CM, for instance, right? So, and then conversely, obviously the same thing would be true if you're not, right? So you shouldn't be.
I also think it's important to do a in-depth forecasting throughout your portfolio, right? Where you're going to build, how you're going to approach the build, what are you going to do, how do you set your equipment up? And that's not something that you do week to week. You got to take a look at, we look at it every year, right? So when I'm looking at equipment, I'm looking at 3-year buy with a certain vendor so that I'm locked into some of those delivery times that I need to be successful. Some gamble with that as well. I mean, you're looking at your key markets, but the ability to forecast to rate be able to.
Yeah, that's very true.
So you were breaking up there a little bit for me. Hopefully that was.
Yeah, we could hear him.
Okay,
Right.
Good. So forecastability, that actually, you guys are reading my questions evidently, and you haven't. So the forecastability, one of the big questions is, where is the next Northern Virginia going to be, right? In the U.S., I suppose, not, well, anywhere. I mean, you can answer wherever you might happen to be. But some of the things that you do in order to be able to go to wherever that is, and Anthony, I think you just answered that. You have to make sure you have good, strong partners, right? And that was one of the things I heard you guys talking about earlier. Is there anything else? Is there other areas you want to talk about in the U.S.?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one. You just got to take a look back in time and understand, where, our business really evolved. You take a look at Northern Virginia, for example, what was the main driver behind Northern Virginia? Well, number one, you've got the U.S. government, which was, one of the primary, users of the early internet. And you also had May East back there, which was the main interconnection point. And then you take a look around the country, as time goes on, and then you've got the development of high tech in Silicon Valley. So that's where you saw a lot of, progress, as far as the data center business is concerned, and, areas like Santa Clara. And what drove Santa Clara? Well, Santa Clara was driven because you had low power from SVP, low power costs. And you take a look at, what are the, the major considerations in our business, and, that is, where are your major costs, where your major OpEx, and that's the cost of power. So you take a look around the country now, and where do we think that next location might be that has low power costs? And that's starting to lead us to areas like Oregon, and we see a lot of development in Hillsborough right now. And again, the main driver there, again, is power costs. And yes, the question is like, well, why are we getting away from Southern California now, or the Bay Area? And honestly, the cost of doing business in California now is getting to a point where it's not economical, between cost of land, cost of power, taxes, Title 24. A whole variety of things are pushing us away from that, because we are, as a business, under pressure every day to decrease costs, and increasing costs doesn't help us. So you'll see markets like that start to develop, and there's a couple others around the country that Phoenix, for example, Dallas was at that point, several years ago. But again, it's all comes down to the total cost of ownership for our customers and, what's most advantageous for them.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. I guess chiming in, I would probably echo quite a bit of what Kevin said. Hillsboro's, great market. We've entered it and got a beautiful campus along with, frankly, you guys too. So we see that as a strong market. It's surprising. We've seen a ton of growth in Atlanta for us. That's just public record. For us, it's been a super stellar market. We love that market. So that's been good for us. Also, we talk about Northern Virginia. I think Northern Virginia continues to just reinvent itself, right? There's just further concentric rings that people say, well, it's not done. Let's go to here. Let's go to there. So, I mean, there are multiple map dots from Manassas to, again, broader and broader. But for us, even there's, the Richmond. We've seen, some major hyperscalers jump to that market. Again, it's a lot of it's tied to fiber connections in. So coming in off, Atlantic and Pacific, cable landing spots. So I think that'll continue to drive, at least for what we see. And then, also it's a surprising jump in Chicago market and Jersey as that seems to pop back up again. So, it's seems like a lot of hot areas right now.
Well, and Lena, I would also add that when I said forecasting, it's also working with your customers, right? And forecasting where they need to be. Right? That's kind of things that we focus on, and more global than just in the United States. They have needs elsewhere in the globe, so it's working closely with them. And again, they're a partner with you in playing where they need to be. That's part of that forecasting piece that I talked about earlier, getting a good relationship and knowing where they need to be.
Mm-hmm. And Anthony, I think that really goes all the way up and down the value chain as well. So even from our perspective, we benefit a tremendous amount when we sit down with our clients and they tell us what's on their pipeline, where they're going to be deploying new assets, new builds around the country in the next 6 to 12 months or even beyond, so that we can prepare, we can hire, recruit, remobilize, relocate our existing staff, because the demand is growing and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't even want to share how many RFPs we have right now that we're responding to just this month in all sorts of different areas for hyperscale projects, but people only have so many teams, and when you're able to sit down with your clients, and we do the same thing with our key trade partners, to the point that was made earlier, if you're great in one area of the country, we want to bring you to the next area of the country with us, because it's all about performance and execution. But just the ability and the insight when our clients share that with us, it just helps a tremendous amount. So we try to do the same with our key trades, and obviously, as you guys do it with your clients and understanding their needs too, it just makes a ton of sense.
Mm-hmm. That was a great discussion, guys. Do you have something else to add?
No.
I want to circle back on something. When Anthony was talking, I heard you say that I believe I heard you say that you had contracts for like 3 years on equipment. Did I hear you say that? Has the COVID scare, the pandemic, changed any of that? Has the OFCI contracts, have you added pieces to that? Have you added time to your contracts, made sure you'd have inventory? Anthony, you want to answer that one?
No. We've settled on pricing with a lot of our vendors. We settled on a certain speed that I need equipment to site, even during the COVID piece. And that's just where I said earlier that forecasting out helps to drive what we can do and where we can do, right? And our vendors have stuck with it. I mean, they've given us the same delivery times pre-COVID as I got, after COVID, right? So, but again, working with them is so important. Being able to forecast with them so that we get our production slots before some others. And locking that in for a 3-year time frame it's worked out great. I will tell you, so many times where we've bought our quantity of equipment in 3 years, we're renewing it after a year because we've already exhausted it. So, but our suppliers have kept pricing and kept delivery.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I think just touching on Anthony's point, I think that would be, I wish we could have 3 years worth of supply in the queue, but I think for us, it's the same thing. As soon as we put in, what we think is 2 projects worth of lean forward and insurance, it gets consumed as quickly. I mean, we're, a 3 times a multiple for what we'd usually would consume and build. So I would love to say we have that exactly nailed down, but it's not that we're missing opportunities. We are, I think, all of us aggressively pursuing what's out there to be done. So.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at with the impact of the pandemic, and it hasn't changed the demand curve. It just slowed it down a little bit. So as a result of that slowdown, now it's starting to hit again, where it's coming back, and it's coming back pretty quickly. So like I said, it hasn't changed the demand curve for our customers' needs at all.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, I was going to say, what I've seen with the COVID, even globally, there are some things you just can't control, right?
Right.
Like when Singapore closes its borders for 2 months and stops all construction throughout the country, that's something you can't anticipate, right?
Right.
But what you can do is everybody's in the same boat.
Yep.
All of your competition's in the same boat. They can't build any faster than you can build
Right.
there right now because all construction is stopped. So, and when it restarts, you just, you pick put your boots back on and you get back out to site and you start going again. Those are the things you can't control when a country is shut down. The things you can control in your destiny is, like I said, getting good, strong partners to help you navigate the tough times. It's that simple, right?
Yeah.
Continuous, repetitive, a comfort level with those partners, right? Weed out the ones that work for you, and keep the ones that are consistently deliver for you.
Mm-hmm.
And treat them right. Treat them as a partner, not as a vendor.
Right. Agreed.
Thanks, Anthony, and thanks, guys. We have a lot of questions here, so I want to get to some of these here. We'll do some rapid fire ones. Tim, fair game for you to jump in here too. And thanks for leading the discussion here. So the first question we got, modularity. What is a typical block size you will see when you talk about biggest block that you can work with offsite or work on offsite?
Kevin, this is proprietary information, so I won't answer that one.
Yeah, that's funny that nobody even answered right away.
All right, well, if that's secret sauce, then no worries at all. We'll just move on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of intellectual property that goes into that, but I guess the simple answer to that, Adam, is you take a look, and for me, the way it's been over the years is that you've got to look at product availability, and for us, it's like, all right, what's common in the marketplace? What is the standard size? What has a very good supply chain? And you kind of work around it that way. Because if it's hard to get, or its cost per kW is out of line with something similar, so that's a lot of the driver. And it's going to be a different answer. You ask 5 people, you'll probably get 5 different answers. Mm-hmm. So you got to look at what's best for your organization and what your strategic plans are, what your growth plans look like. What are your customers asking for? What are your customers' needs? It's not a simple question to answer, with just one number.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think you have to key in is what the customer's needs are, right? On that particular block size that works for us may work for 10 customers, or may only work for 1. So you have to have that ability to scale that block size a little bit, right?
Yeah.
If it takes you out of supply chain, that could extend your construction time a little bit, right? But for the most part, find one. I would say you find the one that works for the majority of the customers, and if you can tweak it, you tweak it.
Yeah, just look at it this way. When you order equipment, nothing matches exactly. Period. You've got 2,500 kW generators. You've got 1,000 kW UPSs. You've got 4,000 amp switchboards, 3,000 amp switchboards. You name it. What you want to try and do is maximize your utilization of all those pieces of equipment. And I can guarantee you never will, because they're not made that way. for whatever reason. So, you know, the more that you can utilize all that equipment together into one package, the better off you're going to be, the more cost effective you're going to be.
Yeah, really drive it to the limit, I would say.
And then as soon as you stabilize around something, then somebody makes a one step larger component, and then we change it again, right?
Happens all the time.
It sounds like the Apple iPhone charger.
That's right.
Let's stick to modularity here. And you know, again, even though, you know, somewhat of secret sauce there, understanding that there are nuances here, and it's very circumstantial is probably very helpful to our audience out there. So thanks, guys. So in terms of, you know, pre-qualifying prefabricators or even just partners, you know, let's say if you have a new partner, can you discuss how you define if a subcontractor's prefab is up to quality or throughput ability? You know, and how do you define that?
I think the first thing you've got to get right is, and frankly, it's just definitions or the vernacular. When one person says prefab or modularity, that might mean about 3 different things, right? So, and it frankly means different things to us. I think we all think about larger unit ops being prefabricated offsite in some amount of pre-commissioning or pre-checkout. So large things come in pre-assembled. And then to our sub-suppliers, their prefabbing is maybe how to connect those things up in subsets of plumbing or electrical componentry that they would consider prefab. So I think the first thing is getting everybody's definitions to be right. But if the question is how to pre-qual or how to become one of those, which I'm sure there's people on the phone, I think the first thing is to have some proof of principle. There's so many people that want to do it or say they can do it, but they don't, it's become a very sophisticated process in terms of doing these large components. So you really have to prove it, right? And it's tough to do that. You know, the larger integrators of component tend to be slightly more successful, but that doesn't prevent somebody from becoming that guy. So I don't know, I've said a lot there.
Well, I think you can also look at outside the data center industry. If you're looking at prefab, there's a lot of industries that have done prefab for a long time. Okay? It's not something new, right? Many ships are prefabricated. Oil and gas does a lot of prefabricating. So you'd be surprised at how much prefabrication has gone on for years that you can leverage vendors that have done this a long time and sit down and bring them through your design and getting another look at it, right?
Agreed.
How they would approach it.
Yeah, just
that's what I would say.
Yeah, just applying their knowledge and then, you know, new subset of standards. Ryan, are you going to jump in there?
Well, just quickly, I was going to add that, you know, you look at a more mature design construction vertical like healthcare, that, you know, we have all been doing prefabrication, modularization there before we started doing it in the data center business. So in some ways, you know, industries learn from each other, but you can also leverage that experience that you have to try to enter into new markets too.
Thanks. All right, so moving on. I do love this question here. It's really, you know, challenging your customer. So have you guys ever told an end user customer, tenant, or even a new tenant who's not moved in yet, that their dates or timelines are just unrealistic? You know, we're talking about speed to market. When is there, you know, when is too much speed to market enough for you to tell your end user, hey, that's not going to work out timeline-wise. Here's what we can do. You know, how often do you know, fight back with the customer?
I don't know if it's fighting back with the customer or fighting back with our own internal sales team.
Well, I'm in sales. You know, we love to say yes.
I know.
Yeah, Adam, I was going to say, you start with yes, but then you go through the explanation and the working session to try to figure out how to make it happen. But yeah, I mean, timelines are aggressive. You really, to meet it, you know, there's best practices and lessons learned. You got to start early, you got to bring your partners in early. You got to think through your long lead materials early. But you have to have those conversations. So I think all of us on this panel would probably say our ideal is to say yes, but we've got some real work to do to try to figure it out. And you have to be open and honest if, you know, there are restrictions that you can't move or that can't be moved, even when you put your best creativity at time.
I prefer to be open and honest with the customer right up front. Okay, I want to be able to deliver for that customer. I don't want to be a one and done with that customer. So if we can't meet the timeline, I want to tell them why we meet the time. Be open and honest with them. And we have in the past worked ways to get them in to achieve their go live date by getting them in earlier while we're still building out. And during commissioning, they may not be in the space, they're kind of blacked out when we're doing commissioning. But I would say that the worst thing you can do is say yes to a customer and then not being able to deliver. Then the repeat business is not there, right? So I would be upfront, honest with them, what we can do, how we can help them get in to make a date, and be transparent about it.
I mean, it comes down to, knowing your limitations as a business and, making sure that you communicate that. And, Anthony said, sales always says yes, tongue in cheek, but, that's their job, and that's why these kind of questions come back to people like us, because we're the ones that have to institute a level of reality and discipline and, tell customers, what we can and can't do. And like Anthony said, you don't want to be one and done. So we talk about this throughout the entire presentation, that, it's really a partnership between you, your customers, your supply chain, because we either succeed or we fail. And again, like you said, you don't want to be one and done.
It's such a small industry too that, to Anthony's point, if you do say yes, you can't deliver, make a false promise, you're not going to be working with that client and probably other clients, because, communication travels. So reputations, results, they go a long way.
Yeah, well, for the official record, QTS always says yes, no matter what. So. No, just kidding. No, I mean, it really comes down to, I think most of us, we're all, again, half of us are competing with each other. We all typically are around, you can't say yes to every deal at the speed at which we're going. So you have to kind of make some selective yeses on who are strategic and who are not. I mean, just like us, we want to be great partners. We want to have great partners. So there's certain people that we all say, hey, I will say yes to these ridiculous things because we have to, right? We're great partners, but we work toward it. I think to Anthony's point, there are some things we just say we can't do, right? And those probably tend to be people who aren't your best partners. And, those are things that you have to work through. But
I think you can find a way of working with just about every customer to kind of show them what you're trying to, what you can do, and help them to eventually achieve what they want. Right. It's not a, no, we can't do that. It's, don't think we can fit that in right now. Let me understand your priorities a little bit better. Is there something we can get to you done early that you go live and then we finish out the rest of the space?
Yeah.
The big thing that I'm seeing more and more of now, and I think we all are seeing this, is we're moving so fast. There's such a concern about safety on site right now with a bunch of customers out there right now. They want to make sure everybody goes home safely. So I think that's something that we can't forget, right? Because we are in a business that, their accidents do happen, and we want everybody to go home safe. Speed is not conducive to safety all the time. So there's a balancing act in there. They want it fast, but they also want it safe. We want everybody to go home safely at night. And that's something I think we collectively as an organization, is the data center industry, going to deliver fast. We got to be cognizant of that speed market and everybody getting home safely.
Yeah. And
all right, so here, getting around to that time, but I do want to ask this one from my buddy Vinay Nagpal. Again, on the speed to market discussions. Speed to market seems to be a key in these, these days, obviously. What are some steps that you might be taking without revealing any of your, secret tricks and or new technologies that you're deploying that are, helping you improve speed to market?
Using precast.
There you go. You're a fan.
Great answer.
I would say without mentioning technology per se, I think it is understand what you're doing prior to starting, right? So as I think we all have a standard program that we're building. So it's being adherent to those standards, but yet having some flexibility. There's so much of it that is just lost in churn otherwise. If you don't have that stuff nailed in, if you don't have your team, your partners, your suppliers understood, that is so much, that's 50% of the battle, if you will, again, is having the right people. So if you've got the design hardened, if you've got a great team, you almost half won the effort.
And I agree. I think it's a lot to do with the team. bringing them early, joining them together, making sure that you're going through those risk mitigation steps and not having something that derails the plan as you work through, making decisions timely, but having the information that you need as a client to make that decision. Those are the things that help you execute well and meet those speed to market objectives.
I would say pre-planning, big piece of that. When I say pre-planning, it's exactly what Lane and Ryan said, right? Bringing your partners in early, tackle the problem together as a team, right? And then execute to that plan. That's what's gonna help you.
Yeah, it's all the things that we've been talking about already. It's standardization, it's modularization, it's control of supply chain, all those things.
Thanks. All right, well, so we're wrapping this up here. Here's probably a pretty quick question, I'm thinking, but it is fun. We have seen some stuff along these lines. Do you see a future in vertical data centers? We've heard about building vertically. Obviously, it makes more sense in some locations like metropolitan cities and that kind of thing. So what's your thoughts on multi-story data centers? Where do you think it's going to go? Do you think it's going to continue to get taller and taller? Anyone jump in there? Crystal ball.
You do it when you need to because the cost of land.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
Yeah, we're doing 2 right now, one in Singapore, high rise, and one in Korea, high rise. But we're looking at postage stamp sites that it makes sense. Yeah. When you have land available and the land is cheap, I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Given a preference, rather do single stories.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, given a preference cost-wise, single stories all day long.
Right. I was going to say the same thing from a constructability perspective, from a turnover or colo perspective, and having to work above a turnover space. But you do it when there's a need to do it. And in tight urban sites where you need to be close to the population center and needs a particular use case, it may make sense.
Yeah, at the end of the day, more costly it is for us to build, that cost is just essentially passed on to our customers.
Sure. I'm going to press it a little bit harder. So, land will eventually run out, I would assume. And other than dumping data centers down in the ocean, which is being tested right now, or even in space, which could be something of the future, who knows? Do you think it would be wise for some group out there to figure it out and make building vertically viable and cost effective before we actually need it?
And I'll jump in there quick, and I don't know, I think back to case studies I've read, I think of Global Crossing and how everybody was focused on doing the telecommunication cables from undersea, and there was a big investment put into that, and then technology changed, and things could be smaller, they could fit in smaller sized buildings. So I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't think any of us really do. Somebody might want to venture out there, but just you have to be mindful of how the world, what you know today, is going to continue to change. So you have to measure that against it, especially if it's a significant one that you put out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's so spatially dependent on where are you. If I'm in Silicon Valley or Northern Virginia or Jersey, that just, unfortunately, that's a variable that's just based upon location more than, fortunately for us, there's still plenty of dirt in lots of markets, right? Again, even Northern Virginia, we just keep getting into wider circles, right? There is land. If you're Asia Pac, then maybe there is no land, right? Those are different markets, but most of, at least our world, is in places where there's still, it's really about what's the cheapest way to build, not there isn't, any land available unless you're Silicon Valley.
Gotcha. All right, guys. Well, that was a great discussion. I really appreciate you all for making time and joining us here. I'd like to thank our distinguished speakers, our attendees viewing at home, and of course our presenting sponsors, Clayco and Tindall Corporation. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Tim. We hope you all join us next Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern as we explore the Southeast state of the market specifically, looking at key industries that have been impacted by the pandemic, like education, like healthcare, and among others, and how enterprise infrastructure has kept up with demand and what the future might require. We'll see you all soon. Thanks again for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.